Hello, I'm Merryana Salem, aka Mary. I'm a Lebanese Aboriginal bisexual woman.
Hi, I'm Durr-e Haque, aka Daya. I'm an Indonesian Pakistani non-binary lesbian.
We are two writers who love movies, music, books, TV shows, especially when they're gay.
And welcome to GayV Club, where we'll be analysing LGBT texts
that we like, that we don't like, and how we relate to these texts as gays of colour.
Welcome to Volume 2, Episode 3.
Yes!
Of GayV Club.
We got a special treat for y'all today.
All of our episodes are special treats.
We are looking at bisexual representation across the board today. Woo! Oh, we've thought of so many good puns to call this episode.
What are some of the proposed titles for this episode?
My favourite one that we've thought of is Let Bygones Be Bygones. And I also like bisexuality, as in a cup of tea.
Bitextuality.
Bitextuality.
I personally would have liked Eat Hot Chip and Lie.
That's such an obscure reference.
I don't care. We're actually very niche.
I know. But do we make ourselves more niche? That's the question.
I don't know. People be like, what does this mean? Eat hot chip and lie.
Yeah. I don't even know what it
Desiree
means.
Alcavan's character in The Slip.
Yes, who we will be talking about today.
Again.
Because
we love her.
Because we love her. Desiree, I don't know if she listens. Maybe she does. We love you. But anyway, we've sorted all our bisexual representations into some categories, and we will be running through category by category the sins and virtues of each and how bisexual representation is generally represented. The good things and the bad things. And the things that we're not quite sure are good or bad, but are just...
There's a lot of nuance to a lot of these, so we're gonna unpack that.
We're gonna unpack that. We will be talking about a lot of different media today. We will do our best to keep everyone up to speed as we go. Shall we start by defining bisexuality before we go any further?
It's a little bit ridiculous that we have to say this, but bisexuality is defined as attraction to the same and other genders.
It's always been defined as that, for the record. People who may have the misconception that bisexuality is...
Technically, it was originally defined as a mental disorder.
But
since the Reclamation.
There is a misunderstanding that bi literally is very taken literally and means two, and only means like being attracted to cis men and cis women, or just men and women, but it's never been just that.
And it's always taken other genders into account. It's always taken into the fact that the gender binary is bullshit, and anyone that thinks that it does mean two, that's just a blatant disregard of history, first of all, important history of LGBT culture, first of all, and it's also just really transphobic and biphobic.
I think a lot of these new terms that people come up with, and there are so many, I'm not going to go through them all, but I think they're often rooted in a very transphobic understanding of bisexuality, which is to say that it's a complete misunderstanding. Because literally, fun fact everyone, the purple on the bi flag was put there to represent trans people and to align with trans people. So this idea that for some reason a lot of people have that bisexuality is not inclusive of trans people is wrong. And if you believe that, please go and read
a book.
Please.
And actually interact with queer people like outside of the internet. And
I understand. I have identified with labels in the past that are labels that I identified with because I misunderstood bisexuality. But all it takes is for you to actually do the work, go and research.
People talk about it being like a culture, like, oh, bi culture is this, LGBT culture is this, gay culture is this. If it's your culture, know your history.
All right, so we've defined. Shall we begin?
Okay.
LGBT representation in TV and film. Well, it's been around in film for a long time, I think, like since the beginning of film.
Yeah.
But in television, it was a bit different. It didn't become like prominent until the late 80s and 90s.
Yeah. It didn't really break out more than out of subtext.
Yeah. until then. I mean, of course, there's always been subtext, or subtext has always been there, but in terms of more explicit representation, that didn't start happening till the 90s and early 2000s. And it tended to be like I found a term when I was researching this, like assimilatory kind of thing. Yeah. So it's like it would portray gay people or bi people who were rich or who, for all other intents and purposes, would pass as...
And were pretty much white as well, often.
Yeah, so pretty much the most palatable version of it that you could find. That sort of allowed a lot of LGBT content to start being made in the 90s and 2000s. But bisexuality, interestingly, wasn't really represented explicitly for a bit longer because it's misunderstood, I guess, a lot of the time.
Sometimes it would be there and then they wouldn't really talk about it.
Yeah. And also, like, or maybe you'd have a character who probably would have been bi in any other circumstance, but, you know, probably from network pressure, they were like, oh, you have to either make them straight or you have to make them gay.
We can't confuse
the people. And it wasn't until, like... I actually found a lot of sources that say this, like Orange is the New Black and the L Word, those kinds of shows were like the first shows that had characters that were attempting to be more explicitly bisexual in the way they were portrayed. Even Grey's Anatomy, which is a show I've never watched, but in a lot of bi television history that I've read, that show comes up. All these representations obviously have their shortcomings, they have positive things as well. Bisexuality is nuanced and therefore representations of it are very nuanced. Okay, so you'll probably hear Durr-e use the word bitextual. That's an actual academic term that was coined by bisexual academic Maria Sanfilippo, and it basically describes the way that television and film uses not only spaces but other aspects of storytelling to signify and explore bisexuality, and we'll go into that a little bit more.
Like through social binaries.
Yeah, and through other social aspects like economic status, race. If you can, I highly recommend, if you're bi and you want to have a good read of something, I highly recommend you read her book, The B Word, Bisexuality in Film and Television. I borrowed it from the library to use for an assignment, and I was only going to read the opening chapter because that was all I was going to need, but I ended up reading the whole thing. It's very interesting how much she talks about the biphobia in media that was current when she wrote the book, and there's often the same problems we can still identify in media now. One of the quotes that she says in the book that I really like is that television, more than any other media, is better suited to portraying bisexuality because it unfolds over time, which is necessary for the accumulation of experiences that renders bisexuality not practically viable for any individual is potentially bisexual, no matter his or her behaviours to date, but rather representationally legible. So basically, it's easier for people to perceive bisexuality in television because you can actually have a character and see their experiences and how they build up.
The progression of their relationships as well.
Yeah, you can. And films just don't have the time to do that.
Often they don't.
I mean...
Unless you're Desiree Akhavan.
Yeah, unless you're brilliant and a genius like Desiree Akhavan. That's why a lot of our examples will be with TV. TV is often the place where you see bisexuality more than film. But also we'll mention a couple of books, because books obviously are long form as well, and that means they can do that as well. So
category 1 is the clinical treatment.
My least favourite.
Bisexual representation is just, in this category, it's not necessarily inherently bad, but arguably it's not intended for actually bisexual audiences because it's intended to present a palatable form of bisexuality to be consumed for the purpose of educating non-bisexual people about bisexuality. In this category that lacks nuance, so it's received as uncomplicatedly and as uncontroversially as possible by non-LGBT people.
It's often well-intentioned,
Often it is well-intentioned.
I don't think anything in this category is necessarily malicious. It still amounts to limiting representation of a complex identity to maintain the interest of biphobic and homophobic audiences. And so often it utilizes problematic stereotypes and tropes associated with bisexuality to make a character's bisexuality obvious to a non-LGBT audience. And the first show I want to bring up, I think this is like the most perfect example of clinical treatment, is Jane the Virgin. Anyone who knows me knows that I love Jane the Virgin as a show, and I was watching it before any of this happened. Like, I watched it, I think, from when Series 2 was airing, that's when I was watching it. When this storyline happened, so in Jane the Virgin, the first mention of bisexuality is through a character called Adam. Now, I was annoyed at this character before we even knew he was bisexual because he is literally inserted into the story as Jane's...
Also, he's played by Tyler Posey.
Yes, fair enough. Tyler Posey's character, Adam... the bisexual Adams. The bane of my existence. Adam is introduced at the end of Series 3 as a character who apparently we didn't know about, even though apparently it's one of Jane's great loves that we've never heard of.
Secret X.
Secret X. I was just mad about this because I'm a big Jane Raph shipper, and this was the episode where they were about to hook up, and then she runs into Adam at a party and is like, oh my god, it's Adam! I was like, who is this bitch? Who is getting in the way of Jane Raphael again? Okay, anyway. So later on in this, I think it's actually because his arc is only for 6 episodes. I think it's maybe in the next episode or the episode after. There is a scene where someone figures out that her and Adam have mutual friends. And they're looking on their phone at a picture, like a group picture of all of them together. And Adam points at someone points at the photo and goes, oh, that's my ex. And Jane goes, oh, she's pretty. And Adam's like, no, not her, and then points to the guy and is like, him. And everyone's like, oh!
What?
In all fairness, I was like, whoa.
What does it mean? What does it all mean?
Yeah, but in all fairness, I was quite excited. There had been there hadn't been bi characters in Jane the Virgin, prior to that. There had been,
some lesbian characters who I have a lot of thoughts about. I think this show is just very lesbophobic. I'll just say that.
Yes.
Yeah, continue though, about Adam.
But Adam was pretty much superficially inserted into Jane the Virgin's plot to update the audience on bisexuality.
Yeah.
And the reason for this, it is for a good cause in the sense that it's to lay the groundwork so that Petra, who is one of the show's main female characters, can have an arc where she falls in love with her beautiful lawyer. Prior to that, Petra had only been shown to be interested in men, and she herself thought that she was only interested in men. Adam was intended to be part of this story so that the writers, and this is something I looked up, the writers wanted to make sure that they weren't just objectifying Wooloowah, basically.
Women who love women.
Women who love women, and wanted to even the scales and make sure they had a male bisexual character before they put a female one in, which I guess is a noble pursuit in a way. They were like, I understand their reasoning behind it. I don't know how necessary it was. But Adam is essentially there to reveal that he's bisexual to Jane. This is the weirdest episode of a show you'll ever watch. She finds out that he's bi because he says to her, like, oh, that's my ex-boyfriend. She freaks out. I really don't like this episode because it almost wholly focuses on her freaking out about it.
Yeah, I didn't like the episode at all. I was like, shut up. She
is so paranoid through this whole episode. The worst scene is when they're out to lunch. They're just sitting having lunch. They're not doing anything. They're just in the friggin' pub. And a guy comes up to take their orders because, like I said, they're in a restaurant, and she has these panic thoughts where she thinks that Adam is hitting on the waiter or the waiter is hitting on Adam, and she just keeps imagining that Adam is hitting on all these people. I suppose it is meant to criticize biphobic perceptions of bi people, but at the same time it's more encouraging us to be very sympathetic towards Jane for freaking out about it rather than actually being like, what Jane is thinking is wrong and hurtful.
By the end of the episode, obviously she kind of decides, I'm an adult, I should communicate with my partner because that's what adults do. And the episode ends and Jane kind of she acts as a stand-in for the audience, and she kind of interrogates Adam about his bisexuality with his consent. She's just asking all these questions that I guess the writers predicted that the audience might have, that non-LGBT audiences might have.
It literally feels like a scene where they Googled what are the most common questions asked about bisexuality, because it's like they didn't even bother to try and tailor the questions to be in
it's so weirdly constructed, I don't know, it's like going through a checklist.
Yeah, it really was.
It's not natural at all, the way that it's written.
I don't think I know any people who have actually asked these questions out loud. They really
are.
Some of the questions, just for example, that she asks are do you prefer men or women? he is like, I don't have a preference. I am just with whoever I'm with, and like, that's it. And she's like, are you monogamous? And he's like, yes, like, I am not all like, he literally goes like, not all bisexuals are like polyamorous. Like, you know, it's literally running through a checklist of all these stereotypes that Jane frames as questions. And then at the end of this interrogation session, she's like, okay, well, I think I can be fine with it now. And
then dumps him 2 episodes later.
Well, actually,
for other reasons, he dumps her.
He dumps her. Like, so...
I would.
You would? Because it's Tyler Posey?
No, I mean, I would have dumped Jane.
Oh, you would have dumped Jane, yeah. But, the head writers did basically say in a BuzzFeed interview that the main purpose of Adam being in the story, apart from being, you know, they wanted to even the scales of having a man who loves men, other than that, it was mainly to educate the audience on bisexuality. And it's really funny to me that this is a thing that they did, because it's kind of reminds me in Doctor Who when, like, they'll introduce something in the middle of the series that will be part of the finale, but it's like, you know, a gadget or something. They'll be like, here's a gadget. You know, this is an important thing.
Pay attention.
You know, kind of like in Series 3 when they introduced the clock thingy that hides the Doctor, so that when it comes to the finale and, like, the Master is using that, you're like, oh my god, I've seen that before.
Yeah.
It's like they wanted people to do this with the concept of bisexuality.
With a bisexual.
Yeah.
Prop is bisexuality.
Yeah. Yeah, it is kind of... Poor Adam is used as a prop, which I think is a shame because, you know, there aren't a lot of bi-Latino men. At this point, there wasn't a lot of bi-Latino men, and you could have done some really lovely things with that. But no, instead they're just basically using him as a prop, as an educational tool for the audience. Adam's experience as a Latino bisexual young man are boiled down to their bare essentials and utilized as an educational tool. The head writers have even spoke about that being the purpose. This is done in service of Petra's arc, and you know, while I love Petra's arc, it's, like, done very well, handled very well. I don't think that necessarily negates how Adam is treated, though.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think you can go, oh, well, they wrote the bisexual woman good, so I guess we can excuse this crappy treatment of a bisexual man. In terms of the story, you know, she gets a very nuanced portrayal, but, you know, this comes at the expense of poor Adam, and on the spectrum of clinical treatment, Jane the Virgin is, for me, the worst one because of just how coldly clinical, like, the treatment of Adam was. Really just didn't. But, you know, there's different kinds of bad clinical treatments. Which brings me to sex education. Okay,
spoilers for the new season, by the way. It just came out recently.
So no surprise that a show called Sex Education is clinical in its treatment. I mean, that is the premise of the show.
Yeah.
But Sex Education deploys specifically biphobic and homophobic language and tropes to signal yet another Adams. We have a trio of bisexual Adams.
We're going to talk about.
This is the second.
Yeah. To signal Adams, like, bisexuality.
Yeah. But to signal Adam's budding bisexuality, Adam bullies Eric, who is a openly gay character. He uses homophobic slurs to bully Eric from series 1.
Eric is my boy.
Eric is our boy.
I love Eric.
Love him. He deserves so much better than all these crappy people that he is surrounded by. Adam bullies Eric using homophobic slurs. He used violence, even in the moment where he kisses Eric, and it's revealed that, oh, Adam actually likes boys. And not just any boy, he likes the boy that he's been essentially beating up.
This is, like, my least favorite trope ever, like, the straights who bully gay people are secretly gay. Like, I hate it. It's so homophobic. It frames homophobia as the fault of queer people rather than resting any accountability on non-LGBT people. It, like, totally erases the main source of our abuse. And tropes like this are really harmful in media because it's kind of like a gotcha. Like, it's treated that way, but it's also like, it's...
Guess whose fault it is that you are treated homophobically? Your fault.
Yeah.
Like, Adam's bisexuality is literally framed as the thing that makes him homophobic.
Because internalized homophobia, like, it's such a big issue.
But
in the community.
But they use this to excuse Adam's abuse,
Yes.
which I don't think they should. Like, I
don't
actually
think
think
they
it would
should.
have been a lot more powerful if they had stuck with the plot line of Eric standing up to Adam and being like, no, like, you don't deserve for me to, like, validate you.
Yeah, I hate that there is that scene where Eric does stand up to Adam and is like, okay, but you bullied me. Like, it's nice that you've worked out who you are, but you bullied me and made my life miserable and was the reason that I hated myself for a long time.
Mm-hmm. It would have been so powerful if they'd left it like that.
If they just left it like that.
And Adam had, like, walked away, Eric had walked away, and you know, he didn't
Eric doesn't deserve any of this.
No, he
Eric
doesn't.
No,
he doesn't.
Just...
That's not what happens. Actually, the narrative rewards Adam with Eric's affection at the end of series 2. And it really doesn't sit well with anyone. I don't think it should sit well with anyone.
Especially because Eric is already dating a boy who is nice to him. Like, to be fair, you know, he and Raheem, this other boy, they clearly don't really have the right chemistry, and that's fine. But also, like, to treat, especially because Raheem is also a person of color, like, to treat the white bully as a more viable option for Eric. Like, to treat Eric's white abuser as a more viable love interest than this guy who has just been mostly kind to him, like...
Yeah, the only scene that
so
Raheem irritates me is when he's being irritatingly French at Eric's church. And he's being so freaking rude. I was like, please.
Yeah, I don't like that.
I don't like that scene. I was like, that's not very nice. Again, Eric deserves better than all of these people. Yeah. But
then it's written in a way where Eric's like, oh shit, this guy doesn't like musicals, but this one does. So therefore I'm meant to be.
Also, like, I used to think that the guy who was playing Adam must have been about 36 because he looks so old, but he's actually like so younger
jarring.
than me.
He's my age.
I was so shook. Adam's bisexuality is also framed in contrast to Ola's, who I loved Ola. I do love Ola.
Literally, like, the most queer-coded character I've ever seen. Like, when she was, like, introduced in season 1, I'm like, how is she not gay?
Yeah. No, I actually thought I was like, this bicon up in here, right? But Adam's bisexuality is framed in contrast to Ola's pansexuality. And there is actually a scene where she describes...
She takes an Am I Gay quiz.
Yep.
And she gets the result that she's pansexual, and she reads out the definition of pansexuality, and then it cuts to a scene of Adam masturbating to a poster that has a man and a woman on it, and he's, like, kind of trying to choose between the two that he's most I don't know, turned on by.
Do we need to see this?
No, what? First, we will talk about
that in a minute.
That's a whole other issue with sex education, that these characters who are supposed to be teenagers are presented in such a
sexualized
way, but
also the show is not meant for teens.
I don't know who this show is for. It's really weird.
Yeah, I don't know either. But what we were saying was, it's really weird that these scenes supposedly frame pansexuality as the one that is inclusive of all genders, and then frames bisexuality as meaning two, as meaning the binary. Which, as we previously said, is completely false.
Also, I don't even think that this show has even presented any kind of non-cisgendered person anyway.
No.
So, what does this do?
So, yeah, it just, for me, I found it highly offensive in the sense that by not pitting him, but, like, contrasting him to Ola, I just found that
it's making the statement that bisexuality and pansexuality are different things, which they are not.
They are not.
It's just such a gross misunderstanding, and again, just a total disregard for history.
Sex education is clinical in the worst way because it's
wrong.
It teaches the wrong thing. Right? Like, it's a clinical treatment, but it's teaching you something that's completely incompetent. Yeah. At least Jane the Virgin was trying to be helpful when it was being clinical, but sex education is completely unhelpful. So I'm going to move on to a nicer sort of clinical treatment, and that's Brooklyn Nine-Nine. Apart from being propaganda, which all cop shows are, I'm not going to get into that because I think it's calling
just
water
be
wet.
Critical.
I don't want to sit here and call water wet with y'all. Like, I think Brooklyn Nine-Nine manages to balance being clinical in its approach with being genuine, because Rosa is Latina. You know, it shows the difficulty of coming out to co-workers, but then it moves on from that quite quickly, 1 20-minute episode, and then for the rest of the time it's just treated as business as usual. I do have a thing, and it's not a thing that I think is bad, but I do think it's interesting that it's like, it's almost like an overcorrection. They're like, okay, we've shown you Rosa with the relationships with all these men, so
for
now
5 seasons straight.
For 5 seasons straight, so now we're only going to show her with women, and I can't help but wonder if we're going to get 5 seasons of Rosa with women, and then they'll be like, right, switch up the roster, guys.
Hopefully the show doesn't last that long.
I would like it to come to an end.
Just a natural conclusion.
Just a natural conclusion. But something I did want to mention with Brooklyn Nine-Nine that I think is weird, and it's not really part of the clinical thing, it's just something I want to mention. I think it's really interesting that Jake is coded as bi. Literally from season 1, he makes references to being attracted to men.
Maybe that was something they were ramping up to, but then they were like, no.
No, I mean, it was a Fox show.
Yeah.
It was on the Fox network, so I can't imagine that, like, it would have been easy for them to do that. But, like, it is very interesting to me. Even in the episode where Rosa comes out, he has, like, a whole I am bi speech prepared that he gives to her, and I find it really odd, you know, and I think it's kind of sad because I do want that affirmation.
It's
like,
sort of treated like a joke, I think, in the show as well.
Yeah, it's a joke for him but not for her, which I think is, you know, I kind of wish they would maybe not retcon it, but I don't know, legitimize it in some way. But I know they won't, because he's married to Amy now, and I guess they won't.
They don't want to confuse the people.
They don't want to confuse the people, but I think it would be fun if they did. But anyway, that is our clinical category. Like I said, not always a bad thing, but not always a good thing either, if something is spreading like misinformation, like sex education is.
So, next category is the gender bias. So this category is for bisexuals that are portrayed as being, for lack of a better word, monosexual, and usually heterosexual, except for one instance or purpose that's like explored minimally compared to their other romantic exploits.
So bis in this category usually insist on not labeling themselves, and actually that's true in all these categories, except for maybe the clinical one where they make a very sordid point of using words. They usually insist on not labeling themselves, and more often than not, like, most importantly, their same-sex relationships, or like the relationships that would more obviously portray them as bisexual, are often moralized as metaphors for difficulty and uncertainty to the point where it's almost criminalized. This category does leak over into our next category a little bit. This is more for like, this category of the gender bias is more like about how you'll have a bisexual character, but their whole story might only mainly focus on one gender, with maybe one scene of, or maybe two if you're lucky. Or even, you know, scenes are actually pretty lucky. I mean, sometimes it can only be one line. I think the worst instance of this is...
Just say Orange is the New Black.
Is Orange is the New Black.
It happens a few times on the L Word as well.
Yeah.
In a similar way.
I don't really want to talk about Orange is the New Black. I hate it. I just don't think Orange is the New Black does anything well. It basically criminalizes Piper's attraction to women. Everything about Piper's attraction to women is framed in the context of her
like she
being
literally
a criminal.
goes to criminal.
Yeah, she literally goes to prison because her girlfriend was a drug dealer, and then while she's in prison, she falls back in love with that person, and that's constantly framed as something toxic, and until they decide, oh no, it isn't actually, it's quite nice. And then even when she has that stupid arc with Ruby Rose, that is also framed as Piper going off the rails in prison and actually becoming even worse in prison than she was on the outside. Just the layers at which Piper's relationships to women are like criminalized is just insane to me. But also, like, my favorite instance of this, because it's almost laughable, is in Da Vinci's Demons.
For those who don't know, Da Vinci's Demons is like the 1997 movie Anastasia, except it's a show about Leonardo da Vinci. Where it's just a lot of it is bullshit. It just doesn't make sense. But you know,
it's historical fiction.
Yes, it's historical fiction. Yes, that's what I was looking for.
Historical fiction, for anyone who doesn't know, is fictionalized accounts of history, can encompass like anything from just like fictional retellings of events to like literal like, here is my sci-fi take on the Civil War. Like, you know, it's a very broad genre.
Yeah.
But anyway, continue.
But yeah, so Da Vinci's Demons, it was a 2013 series by Starz. The main character was Leonardo da Vinci,
played by Tom Riley,
who, as is quite general knowledge, that everyone knew, like, in real life was a bisexual man, an artist and engineer and a lot of different things.
Genius!
And the thing about this show is that regardless of what everyone knows, it straight washes Leo in that his end-all be-all love interest, even after she dies, is a woman.
Yep.
Even
that's it.
His end game is with a dead person. And the only time that Leo's bisexuality is properly addressed is in one episode in season 1 where this random prostitute who he used to hook up with decides to report him to the police for sodomy.
Yeah, out him.
Just for
the lols.
Just because he was jealous.
Yep.
Basically.
There's so many problems with that alone.
It's literally criminalized. And, you know, he gets out of it. And that's the only time that Leo's same-sex attraction is explicitly addressed. The annoying thing about this show, other than the fact that there's an end-all be-all love interest, other than the fact that this criminalization episode exists, is that there are so many opportunities for you to have Leo being bi in the show. Like, this is this was a Starz series, guys. Starz who made Black Sails and
Starz who made American Gods,
who made Now Apocalypse as well. Like, so it's
we know they can do it.
It's crazy to me that this show never really went there properly, especially because Leo's best friend, Zoe, is also a bisexual man, played by Greg Chillen, and that totally could have been it. Also, Riario, that's there. You could have had that, but they decided not to. Yeah, the whole show is a mess.
It is
a mess.
And
I have mentioned, I would love to just remake the whole thing. Yeah. Like, it's a very fun mess, and I would love to remake the whole thing just with fixing this correction.
I would love to keep the cast, though, because I love the cast.
Yes, I do.
They're all, like, really
I do
great.
love the cast. Lara Pulver is there.
Love of my life.
She's the reason that I started watching it.
Yeah, me too.
So, next up would be Preacher.
Okay, you know I have a lot of... Okay, Preacher is a show, it's really hard to explain what Preacher's about because it's really chaotic, but it's basically...
really cool concepts executed in the least sexiest way.
It's about a preacher called Jesse who is a criminal. He is no longer a criminal, or supposedly not, until his ex-girlfriend Tulip turns up in town and is like, Jesse, we gotta do one last job. Then they also befriend a very clearly bisexual Irish vampire named Cassidy. Cassidy is pretty much...
played by Joe Gilgan.
Yep. The man who should have been Mad Sweeney, but I'm not going to go there because I get real angry. Cass is, like, very obviously bi to me at the start.
Yeah, even from the beginning.
Yeah. Like, the way he talks to Jesse, and also just, like, why would you be...
He's just very queer-coded as well.
The way he dresses.
Again, straight vampires are so unrealistic.
Why would you be immortal and be straight?
Imagine being straight for all eternity.
No, thank you. And there's a lot of, like, moments where you could easily be like, oh, he's in love with Jesse in season 1.
He very much is, actually.
It's like an OT... It's actually, like, a throuple, like, I feel. Jesse Tulip. But the confirmation for the plebs who can't, you know, have no media literacy of Cass's bisexuality comes in season 3. To start off with, Cass has a throwaway one-liner that he was beat up by this man's wife for sleeping with her husband. And I remember when this happened, everyone was like, oh my god, we finally got the confirmation. And I was like, look at him. Like, really look with your eyes. So that is there to set up one of the most terrible arcs in history, where Cass loses all hope because Tulip and Jesse sort of abandon him.
Yeah.
He's in a very dark place, and he falls in love with essentially Tommy Wiseau. But, like, more goth, if you can imagine that.
No.
What
did you say?
I pointed out to Dee that he looked like Tommy Wiseau. She's never forgiven me. Cass falls in love, quote unquote, with this
an evil vampire.
Who
is presented as good, first of all. So it's kind of sweet. Like, you have one episode of bliss, and then it's ruined.
where him and Cass are, like, really cute. You're like, oh,
they're, like,
wow,
really cute, and he's, like,
is...
teaching him to do vampire things, and it's, like, you know, all those bro moments in What We Do in the Shadows, except, like...
They're actually gay.
Except, like, some actual homo.
Yeah. Like, when it starts, I was like, oh, this is so lovely. Oh, my God. Like, Cass finally gets to be with a boy. But then, like, it's revealed... Spoilers for anyone who's going to watch Preacher, but it's revealed that...
Don't watch Preacher.
Don't watch it. But, like, it's revealed that Tommy Wiseau, like, I've forgotten his name. Tommy Wiseau is actually, like, just killing other vampires, and that's why he's so... So he converts humans...
Oh, yeah, he converts humans to vampires and then kills them immediately.
Kills them immediately to feed off their blood, because feeding off vampire blood is, like, the most powerful thing you can do.
So he's a vampire cannibal.
Essentially.
Who must be stopped.
Who must be stopped at all
And he
costs.
does be stopped.
Yeah, but it also means that Cass has to kill this man who he did like, maybe even love, and it's pretty sad. That's the only time we see Cass be with a man in any romantic capacity.
Fjord, though.
Don't talk to me about that. It's so painful. So
Cassidy and the Angel Fjord were
They
boyfriends.
are boyfriends. They are in love.
I don't need to elaborate.
No, we don't. They were absolutely, like, what should have been Cass's, like, main romance, but it's completely tragic what happened to Preacher. It was so unsexy, and now it's gone, and we never have to think about it again. For the record, I just hated how Cass's story finished in that show. Like, I think it was wholly disgusting. Yeah. Because obviously you always knew that he was going to live past Tulip and Jesse because he's immortal, but the way they deal with that is... nah. Sorry. But a similar thing does happen.
In Lucifer. Lucifer is a show that was made.
Yep. Based on the Sandman comics.
Yeah, Lucifer is kind of a spin-off from the Sandman comics by Neil Gaiman. Lucifer, played by Tom Ellis, is just the literal Satan who's come to LA to, I don't know, be a shit. And
to literally just stir shit. Like,
he's come to LA because he's bored of hell. And
like, I'm bored of my job.
Yes, his character is very much bisexual, but his relationships with men are kind of only ever mentioned in throwaway jokes. Either, like, only through throwaway lines or just, like, actual just jokes.
Aren't there scenes where, like, he's in orgies and there are men there? Like, I've seen...
I don't know.
Like...
I don't really know who this show is for, because, like, I can't imagine a straight man enjoying this show, but also, like, there are just a lot of conventionally attractive skinny women everywhere around this show.
I feel like it's just for horny women.
Yeah.
Because...
That's true.
Most of what I see of that show is just Tom Ellis with his shirt off.
The reason I watched this terrible show, however, is because Leslie Ann Brandt is the most beautiful woman alive. She plays Mazikeen, or Maze. In the most recent season, she actually falls in love with the character Eve. Like Eve from the Bible. The biblical Eve. To be fair, Maze's bisexuality has been mentioned also in a few throwaway lines throughout the season, but it was very disappointing to me to, like, actually see Maze fall in love with a woman, and she literally sings Wonderwall to her. It's so she literally... Really? Sings, like, a really... No. I don't know. I don't know how anyone took that scene seriously. She sings Wonderwall to her, and then she gets rejected. And it's really annoying because throughout the season, like, they do kiss. And I think throughout the show also, like, there are a lot of instances of women kissing, and it's kind of just very male-gazy in that sense, because it's not really to fulfill anything, like, to do with bisexual or lesbian representation.
Category 3 is By the Way. This is an actual name of a trope on TV Tropes, and I really like that they called it this. So it's essentially when there is a bisexual person who has not been portrayed as bi at all, but has a small scene, line, or... something small that infers an attraction to multiple genders. But the thing about By the Way is that usually their non-hetero adjacent relationships are fleeting and go underdeveloped along with their bisexuality itself. There is a lot of things we could talk about in this category, but the main thing I want to talk about is Fleabag. Fleabag is like the epitome. Fleabag doesn't call herself bisexual. when Fleabag is given the opportunity to label herself as bisexual or otherwise, when Kristen Scott Thomas,
yes,
in the scene where they're at a bar and she's sort of hitting on Kristen Scott Thomas. Kristen Scott Thomas asks her if she's a lesbian. Fleabag replies with, not strictly, which is not untrue, but it is symptomatic of a cultural erasure of bisexuality where people who exhibit attraction to multiple genders but don't self-identify, they sort of cement the cultural belief that bisexuality isn't real or is a phase between, like, homosexuality and heterosexuality.
This is especially after I watched the National Theatre Live performance of Fleabag, where she does have a line where she says that, like, girls don't count.
Yeah.
So
I actually I do want to talk a bit about Crashing as well, which is Phoebe Waller-Bridge's other show, which she wrote as well. The character that I forget her character's name in that. Doesn't matter, but Phoebe's character in that also has lines where she talks about how she really enjoys watching lesbian porn, but she doesn't think that she's a lesbian because she finds women attractive. Like, it's really...
It's weird.
It's weird. Like, I don't like it when shows in general refuse to use the word when they've clearly got a character who is bisexual, like Fleabag is, because it really just...
With Fleabag, I think it is set up even from season 1 that she's bisexual. Like, you can see that clearly, and, like, it was nice to have confirmation.
Yes.
But also, like...
But it's
something that's so easily dismissed, you know?
It is, yeah.
But also it was, like, the best confirmation. My fantasy of just being rejected by Kristen Scott Thomas. Yeah,
it's nice. I'm so happy for you that you got to at least vicariously live that fantasy.
Yes.
When you, especially, like, the way that question is framed, like, really bothers me as well, because it's sort of like, are you a lesbian? And her response of, like, not strictly. Yeah. Like, again, like, frames bisexuality in a binary of either you are lesbian or, like, you are gay or you are straight, which it's a binary understanding of bisexuality that, well, first of all, it erases the fluidity and nuance of bisexuality that actually exists by defining individuals by who they are with rather than who they may desire to be with, which I don't think is a healthy way to portray bisexuals at all. Like, of course, a character, like, I don't think you're necessarily required to identify, and not identifying isn't always bad.
I think if Fleabag actually would say I'm bisexual, like, that would be very weird for her character.
Yeah, I think in terms of that character, like, I don't think she would care that much. I don't think she actually cares that much. I'm always aware of how these kinds of shows, especially because Fleabag is so popular, like, how that impacts how bisexuality is talked about. You know, I do think...
Because the thing is as well, non-LGBT people, like, this isn't general knowledge to them, so anything that they learn really is from TV.
Yeah. So if you have someone like a show like Fleabag, which has been watched by everyone, like, it is, like, the biggest show of the last year.
Biggest comedy.
You know, biggest comedy. It's won so many awards. Like, if you have people watching that show and that's their only understanding of bisexuality, it's a very easily dismissed and ignorant portrayal of it. Framing bisexual, like, characters who are, like, bisuggestive as lesbian, gay, or, like, as straight until, like, they're lesbian or whatever. It's a form of marginalization that's kind of equivalent to appropriation, because you're appropriating this idea of, being attracted to multiple genders, but you're just not actually doing the work of, like, authentically trying to
actually represent
that. And the isolated nature of Fleabag's sexuality, both by herself and its lack of acknowledgement by others. Like, I find that very interesting that in that show, her interactions with women are, like, she's alone, there's no one else around, she never talks about them with anyone. There's never a scene where she
doesn't even talk to us about them.
No, she doesn't even talk to us, except for that one bit where the woman hits on her in the shop and she looks at us and she's like, hello. I loved that. It situates Fleabag in this weird, like, post, like, sexual kind of way where she's, like, not othered by her sexuality, either by herself or by others, which can be read as, like, a further appropriation of bisexuality without authentic representation, because it doesn't deal with any of the hardships that are faced by bisexuals. I don't think you can be bisexual and not feel othered and not experience being othered. Yeah. Like, especially with
in the way that you can be any kind of queer.
Yeah, exactly. But in Fleabag's case, like, I don't think realistically she could be that, and there would be not any kind of, like, repercussions or people questioning her or anything like that. Like, it's a very strange... It's basically like appropriation, which is essentially what By the Way is.
Yeah.
And there are other shows that have done this, like, quickly just to run through. The Good Place does this to a lesser extent with Eleanor. Orphan Black is the funniest one because there's a scene where Sarah is drunk. She gets really drunk and she goes out, and in the scene she's kissing women. And then, of course, you've got...
There's also Casima's partner, the French woman. I forget. Delphine.
I was going to say Daphne, but that's not right. But Delphine, just another example of how, like, it's sort of like, oh, you know, she is bi, but we're not really going to talk about it. It doesn't really matter. You've also got Olivia Wilde in House.
Yeah. You have Shiv in Succession. Mm-hmm. You have the ending of Legend of Korra.
Yeah, though I'd make the argument that there is some build up to that if you know what to look for.
If you know what to look for. I remember, like, watching it as it aired. Like, I didn't even let myself hope anything, but it was suspicious to me. And then, literally on my birthday,
on your birthday,
the series finale aired, and I was like, but still, you know, you don't actually really get the canon validation because they just... I mean, yeah, it's pretty gay to walk off into the spirit world together holding hands. But the fact that, you know, you needed that word of God confirmation from the creators is dumb.
Honestly, like, it was only because I knew that that was what it was meant to be when I watched it that I could see that's what it was. But also I want to talk about in this category Firefly. Firefly was weird for me because this was the first time I did see a bisexual woman, like, in a show that I watched. And it was in the form of Inara, who's a character in Firefly. I love her. Played by Marina Baccarin. It's, like, written by Joss Whedon. That's about as all you would need to know. But essentially, Inara's character, like, she's the equivalent of a high-class prostitute that they're called companions. They're like emotional. They're like emotional prostitutes as well as, like, just sexy time. So their whole job is to, like, basically...
I hate Joss Whedon so much, it's unreal.
I know.
Like, as you're describing this, I'm like, bitch, I will kill you.
Yeah, I know. The episode where it's revealed that Inara is bi, I was losing my mind because Inara was my favourite character. I can't help it that all my faves turn out to be bi. Like, it's just a curse. A good curse. But the episode, she is talking about how she's having a client. Like, she usually brings clients to the ship where they all live. She's warning them that she's got a very, like, important royal client coming and they all have to be on their best behaviour. And they're like, what's their name? And it's like, oh, it's the barrister of so-and-so. And they're like, oh, okay, whatever. Then when the barrister arrives, like Mal, who's played by Nathan Fillion, captain of the ship, goes to introduce himself to the man that is standing there next to this woman and is like, oh, hello, barrister, like, welcome to my ship. And then this woman steps forward and is like, I'm the barrister. And you're like, oh my God. And then Inara walks up to this woman and, like, kisses her and, like, they walk off together and, like, you see them in the episode, like, laying around, like, being real sweet. And, like, you know, that's Inara's job. Her job is to be an emotional companion. So she is, like, being very sweet and loving to this woman. And she actually talks about how, like, she is attracted. Like, this was why it was important to me. It was the first time I heard a woman actually be like, oh, yes, I do like men, but I also love women. And I was like, you can do that? Whoa! But it's also something that never comes up again. So this happens in the one episode, very contained in the one episode. It never comes up again.
Yeah, I just thought of one as well. The show Warrior, which is a Cinemax show, like an all-Asian cast set like in Gold Rush San Francisco era. There is a character, she's like the madam of the brothel there. So it's like it's a highly hypersexualized instance of this because this is a show that's geared at men, but there is...
So it's like Inara, yeah.
Yeah, so it is like Inara. There is a character who is the madam of a brothel played by Olivia Cheng. She and the main character of the whole series, Andrew Koji, they hook up in the first episode. And then in a later episode, he comes just to, like, hang out with her and he's like, hey, do you want, like, company? And she's like, no, I've already got someone. And, like, you see her bed and there's, like, another woman there. It's like, oh! Oh my gosh. It's like nice, but also it's like, oh, this is for men. So that's another thing about By the Way is that it's often like geared kind of like
towards men
in a
very like
titillating way.
Isn't it like sexy? Like oh wow. Tuca and Birdie is on this list because Tuka often, like, refers to the fact that she goes on dates with women. I don't think it's really fair to judge Tuka and Birdie because it did only get the one season. We don't know what would have happened, and I feel like they probably would have delved into that more because it was the type
Rest in peace.
Rest in peace, Tuka and Birdie. But the last instance I sort of want to talk about because I did think... like, it was kind of funny, and I really do wish, like, they would let Daniel Craig do this, but, like, in Skyfall, I remember when did Skyfall come out? 2011? Was it 2011?
2012.
2012. I'm in the cinema, I'm 17, I'm sitting here watching, and, like, there's the villain. This is gonna be a great, like, segue to our next one. The villain is like, you know, hitting on Bond while he's tied to the chair and is like, oh, are you nervous? Like, what is this, your first time? And Bond's like, what makes you think it's my first time? I remember being like, oh my god! It just makes more sense for Bond to be biased. Like, really do think that if they let Daniel Craig do that, he would do an excellent job.
I would love for Daniel Craig to, you know, make like his wife and just do a bunch of gay roles. Yes!
Like, how great would it be if in the next James Bond movie, like, the big plot twist is, like, he's just like, I'm going off with a man now, I'm sick of all of y'all. They're not brave enough.
It's not going to happen.
It's not going to happen, but...
It's not going to happen.
I just would like that.
Yes.
But yeah, that was a very... I don't know, it's not funny, but it is funny in the sense that, like, I remember, like, a lot of men being really angry about that one line. They were like, Bond can't be gay. I'm like, he's a spy. Like, it honestly would make his job so much easier.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm serious. Like, you know, you seduce women for information all the time. Like, it would make sense if you just, like, well, rather than just beat it out of this guy... I'll beat it out of this.
May as well have fun.
Yeah. I'm sorry, I watched Torchwood last night. I'm in my Captain Jack Harkness mode.
But yeah, this brings us to our next category. Because even though we're presented with the idea of James Bond being bisexual in this throwaway line in Skyfall, by the way, we're also presented with a queer-coded villain. Which brings us to our next category, which we've just called straight up demonization.
Category 4.
Yeah. So, queer-coded villains, but take it one step further. So, the quote-unquote depraved queer trope, it's existed in the media for years, but I think making a villain's queer sexuality or gender, like, explicit in most cases is actually even more offensive. In the case of bisexuals, it's often used as a cheap symbol or like analogy for their capricious personalities, like indiscernible moral compasses, like chaotic actions, or just simply to scandalize and shock audiences. Like, does their depravity know no bounds? He's kissing a man.
No bounds.
Like, I feel in the last decade there has been an increase as well in dramas centered on anti-heroes, protagonists who are just bad people whom the target audience are supposed to and like can't help but root for, because you know
it's so much fun.
It is fun. It is fun to like root for someone who's not all good. I think 3 such cases of this are Villanelle in Killing Eve, Annalise Keating in How to Get Away with Murder, and Frank Underwood in House of Cards. I know there was a great piece written about this. Yeah, in BuzzFeed News, the actual title is called Why Are So Many Bisexuals on TV Sociopaths? Also sociopaths. What this piece does is it shows how these 3 shows in particular associate the insatiable appetites for power and control with these characters, like with their appetites for sex, like regardless of gender. So like homophobia and biphobia aside, I feel like this phenomenon is the result of residual effects of the Hays Code. It was a production regulation in Hollywood in the 1930s, which regulated the way that deviancy was represented.
And guess what? It was included in deviancy, guys.
Yes. Yeah, same-sex attraction. So I also think this ties into the way that same-sex attraction was regarded as a mental illness for much of the 20th century, including bisexuality, and like tied in with just the demonization of mental illness is the reason why so many villains were queer-coded to communicate.
It's such a double whammy, too. Like, it's like, oh, you gotta make your villain mentally ill, like, and gay? Like, you really had to...
No, gay meant mentally ill to them. Like, that's why...
Yeah.
It's like, oh, we'll just queer code them so that the audience knows how mentally unstable and therefore evil they are. And you see this a lot with Bond villains, like Silver most recently, but like throughout all the
But you
Bond
also
movies
see
as
this
well.
with Disney villains.
Yes,
very
Captain
Hook,
so. Scar from Lion King.
Yeah.
Even Ursula from The Little Mermaid is modelled after Divine the Drag Queen.
But I hated the way that Gaston was played in the live action. Like, they actually even got Luke Evans, who is actually gay, like, to play Gaston, and that really just didn't sit well with me.
With LeFou
especially with all the LeFou thing that was happening. It really... I can't believe Disney is still doing this in, like, the 21st century. Yes, I
can't believe it?
No, I can believe it. I can.
But yeah, as I've said, like, those 3 shows that we've just mentioned. So it also kind of applies in Dracula, in Hannibal, in The Walking Dead with Negan even.
Negan is the worst. I need to, like, talk about this as someone who watches The Walking Dead, because I don't know, I have
Because you suck.
Because I suck. Yeah, literally, like, every time I talk to someone about The Walking Dead, I start the sentence with, I suck, I watch The Walking Dead, and then I talk about it. So, I suck, I watch The Walking Dead. Negan, I love Negan as a villain because he's so evil. Like, I really just dig villains who you can't stop. Do you know what I mean? Like, I find it very entertaining because everyone's always like, oh, no, maybe we can reason with them. Like, no, you can't. But Negan is played by Jeffrey Dean Morgan, and there's literally, like, a line where he's like, oh, I'm gonna go be with the girls later, or who knows, I might suck a dick too. And everyone was like, oh my god, bisexual Negan, king. And I'm like, this is literally the most psychotic villain we've ever had on The Walking Dead. Man. And it is the only bisexual character we've had on The Walking Dead. Big yikes energy.
Also, given the way that The Walking Dead has treated a lot of its other queer characters, isn't excellent either.
No, they often kill them off or they disappear. Like, literally one of them, like, has just went somewhere. Like, they just went and they've never come back. I don't know where that character is. I don't know what they're doing. Again, just associating bisexuality with a lack of morals, which I think also comes into this as well. A lot of the things people we've talked about, like Villanelle especially, are portrayed as, like, having no emotions, having no morals, like, you know, and this is inherently linked.
Like, literally in the first episode of House of Cards, you see Kevin Spacey, of all people. You see Kevin Spacey, of all people, kill a puppy.
Oh, do you?
Yeah.
I've never watched House of Cards. I'm not going to, so you can...
Yeah, it's brutal.
Yeah.
I think another thing that does this is... The Talented Mr. Ripley. It's a movie based on some novels by Patricia Highsmith, who also wrote the novel that Carol is based on. And it's also soon to be adapted into a TV series starring Andrew Scott as well. So I'm a little bit... I hate the movie so much. It's like I want to see Andrew Scott, but also like I hate the story that this is, because it does very much feed into that psycho gay trope, or psycho, but like it's not particularly clear in the movie whether Ripley is gay or bi. We just know that he's one of those things. And yeah, the reason that he kills is because he does have same-sex attraction, which isn't fun. There's also the 2013 NBC Dracula. Instead of Van Helsing, they kind of use another character called Lady Jane, played by Victoria Smurfit. It's just, like, this is just such a disgusting plot line where she's hooking up with Dracula constantly throughout the series, but she doesn't know he's Dracula.
Good for her.
No, like, she's trying to hunt Dracula, but also she doesn't know that Jonathan Rhys-Meyers is Dracula, so she keeps hooking up with him. Then she decides, because obviously, you know, Dracula is after Mina, she observes that Lucy Westenra, who I've always thought is a lesbian, she observes that Lucy is in love with her best friend Mina. What Lady Jane does instead is she encourages Lucy Westenra to basically come out and admit her feelings to Mina, and it's done by showing her how to kiss and like all this stuff, being like, oh yeah, it's natural, just tell Mina that it's natural. It's kind of like you have this psychotic bisexual character framed as predatory as well, and teaching other queer women to be predatory.
Yikes.
Yeah, so after that scene of her and Katie McGrath together, and it's a shame because I had such a huge crush on Katie McGrath, obviously.
Didn't we all?
Merlin. We all did. Lucy does go to Mina and tries to tell her, and then Mina is obviously like disgusted and reviled by it, which is not fun.
Oh, that's upsetting.
Obviously this is a trash show, but the fact is Lucy does become like a vampire. Like, we had a show where Katie McGrath was a lesbian vampire and it was cancelled.
Rest in peace.
One thing that's also just kind of annoying is that, you know, I'm saying this like I wish that it went on, because like even though it's such shitty content, like it's something that I wanted at the time because I was so deprived of it. It's a weird way to feel about things.
It
I
is.
think.
I also think, I don't know if this, but like a trope that I commonly see with bis is that a character will be like confirmed that they're bi and then you'll never see them again.
Yeah.
Like it's really weird. I don't know where to put that category. Maybe in By the Way. But I did want to mention that, and I actually might just tack this on to the end of By the Way. But also River in Doctor Who is very bi-coded from day one. We don't actually get explicit confirmation that River is bi
until the very last
until
episode
literally
that we
the
see
very
her.
last episode that we see her, where she mentions that she was married to 2 women. Anyway. Sorry.
I feel for you.
I
I felt it too.
I'm fine.
I felt it too.
We'll talk about that more in the Doctor Who episode that will eventually come whenever this series finishes, whenever that is.
Yeah, whenever the new season of Doctor Who finishes, we have things to say.
We have things to say.
Yeah, that was a side note, but we were talking about Dracula. There's also a new Dracula made by our least favourite people on Earth, Stephen Moffat and Mark Gatiss. And in this one, I mean, Dracula has always been a queer-coded character, obviously.
Hell yeah.
He and Jonathan Harker are just
Toxic boyfriends.
if you read Dracula, like, it's there, it exists. There was a thing that Stephen Moffat said, which was really, it was so homophobic. It was so like, I'm so unsurprised that you said this, of course.
Like, Stephen Moffat is, like, homophobic, obviously, but he's also very specifically biphobic as well. Like, very homophobic, but also very specifically biphobic.
He was asked if this rendition of Dracula that he was making, like, was bisexual, and he corrected, he's like, no, he's bi-homicidal.
That was
He's bi-homicidal, he's not dating them, he's killing them.
That was a legitimate
and I'm like,
word.
I will be bi-homicidal and fucking kill you. I need to not make death threats on this podcast.
No, it's okay. I'll go down with you because, like, I'll come help you. I'll be your accomplice.
No, just fun fact. In our very first recording of our Good Omens episode, I was worried that we wouldn't be approved by all the podcast platforms, so I cut out a line where Mary said, Jeff Bezos die.
Yeah.
But that's still very much how we feel anyway.
Yeah.
Just for the record.
We want Jeff Bezos to die, and I also wish that Stephen Moffat and Mark Gatiss, in the very least, would stop getting hired to do things. The BBC is so nepotistic.
By his wife, by his mother.
It would be so funny about how nepotistic the BBC, if I didn't have to suffer like this, you know. But yeah, bi-homicidal. And that brings us to Lara Pulver once again. It always comes back to Lara Pulver.
It always comes back to this.
I think the instance where you can see the duality of Stephen Moffat's homophobia,
like the distinction between
and biphobia,
his homophobia and biphobia,
is in the way he wrote and portrayed Irene Adler in BBC Sherlock. We try to avoid talking about BBC Sherlock on this podcast, but it has to be mentioned because this is it's just on all levels bad. Like it actually fits in all these categories because it does all the bad things. So Irene Adler, in the first thing we see her in the episode, is she's a dominatrix, first of all, which there's nothing wrong with that. She is with a woman.
She's with a female client.
With a female client. And she actually mentions having multiple female clients throughout the episode. But of course, Irene Adler is popularized, I'm saying that, or not written as, but popularized as Sherlock Holmes's main female love interest. And so what happens in the course of this episode is that you have an Irene Adler who is very obviously, I will just say queer, because there is no... I mean, she does identify herself as gay in the episode. It's a very weird scene that a lot of discourse has been said over that, and I don't want to add to it. But Irene does identify as gay in the episode.
In the middle of the episode, and then at the end of the episode, it's like a checkmate that she's in love with Sherlock.
Yeah. It's presented as a really weird thing where
because
it's
he has such a magic penis. Yeah. Stephen
It's
Moffat,
so-
bitch, I will kill you.
Yeah. Also, I just hate the way it's done. Like, you know, when he busts her password and he's like, haha, knew you weren't really gay.
All round.
It's
also,
bad.
given like how many other queer-coded villains there are on this show, and the fact that they had Andrew Scott, a gay man, and they told him like, "Oh, please act more camp, please act more
please
gay,
act
just
more
so that we
camp."
can communicate just how fucking crazy you are, just how crazy your character is." Like,
yep. It's so, you know, and Irene Adler, which I don't think we mentioned, like, she is a criminal as well. It's very much framed in connection to that. Her depravity, like, is very much connected to her. But no, Irene Adler is a travesty and should signal to anyone that if Mark Gatiss and Stephen Moffat want to have a bisexual character or a gay character in their thing, they should be stopped immediately.
yeah.
At all costs.
Like, I know Mark Gatiss is gay, but he's very homophobic.
He's the most homophobic gay person.
Like Tyler, the Creator.
How does he sleep with that double conscience?
I don't understand.
Yeah, I don't
understand. And the thing that's like so annoying about Irene Adler and like about Laura Pulver's involvement in this show is Irene Adler, like in 2012, like she was like the person who I saw that like got me to finally admit that that I was into women.
Amen.
Like, you know, teenage me was like, oh wow, you know what? I am into girls.
I was so into Laura Pulver.
Like,
Holy
obviously,
crap.
you know, it had been a long time coming, but like said it out loud to myself because of this. So it's like, this is tainted. This experience has been tainted for me because of just how awful it is. And it kind of goes with that, you know, so deprived of content.
It's also just like, it's not that hard. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, it's really like, it's not that hard for Irene Adler to be bisexual and have relationships with women, also be in love with Sherlock. Like, it's actually not that hard to do.
Yeah.
But you've deliberately done it in, like, the worst possible way.
Yeah.
I don't want to dwell on this anymore. I've said what I wanted to say. But Stephen Moffat has also done a lot of things with Doctor Who in terms of bisexuality that I'm not happy with. But I will talk about that on the Doctor Who episode, because otherwise I'll be here all day.
So that was category 4, straight up demonization.
Quick shout out though, before we move on though, Deadpool is like also very badly treated in this way. His attraction to men.
Shout out.
Yeah, shout out. Deadpool, his attraction to men is like, literally, it's portrayed as a depravity and a joke, because he is just so violent and so, like, off the walls crazy. Like, he must also be into men. Like, it's Deadpool.
So that was category 4, straight up demonization. We did talk about Killing Eve. I forgot to mention Bill from Killing Eve, who we find out is bi, and then he just dies in the next scene, which is not fun.
Another example, you find out
so
people
that's
bi,
kind
they
of
die.
why all the gays that watch Killing Eve that think it's going to be gay, like, given the way, even though Villanelle is explicitly bisexual, like, given the way that they did that to Bill, like, really doesn't make me have any hope for how it is. And I don't even ship even Villanelle. Like, that's a whole other conversation. That's a whole other episode.
I watch Killing Eve, I'm like, no thoughts, head empty.
I know.
That's how I consume it.
Yeah, that's a whole other episode of that I could talk about why Villaneve is shit. Yeah. Why Villaneve is just terrible.
It's partially because I really think Phoebe Waller-Bridge, I need to talk to her about bisexuality.
Yeah. Yeah. But also, like, season 2 wasn't done by Phoebe Waller-Bridge as well. No. So that's important to note. Like, it was done by Emerald Fennell, who I think made the show really bad. Yeah. But moving on from that, we're up to category 5.
I call this...
like we're talking about cyclones or something.
Category 5, biclones. No. Category 5 is what I have termed biconic. And these are the good stuff, the good shit, if you like. Miss Desiree Akhavan and her entire filmography.
Honestly, her entire filmography, most notably The Bisexual. She's also done the movie Appropriate Behavior and the miniseries The Slope, which is really fun.
All 3 are excellent. All 3 very specifically deal with bisexuality and its nuances. Yes. And how it intersects as well with being a woman, being brown. You know, it's very good. And we've talked about the bisexual a lot on this podcast, but I think it's like it's literally the best. Yeah. Like, portrayal of bisexuality or like an exploration of bisexuality that I've ever seen in a show. It ends so lovely. I think there are a lot of people that think The Bisexual is a very depressing show, but I think if you're bisexual, it's actually like a very hopeful show. But it's also like, it also explores the way that the LGBT community also has misconceptions of bisexuality and how bisexuals can often be ostracized from both, you know, they're obviously ostracized from the non-LGBT community, but can also experience ostracism from the LGBT community.
Yeah.
And it's sort of, the show is very much about what is it to exist in that space.
Yeah.
I really like, it's a very bold show in that sense. Very specific.
Yes.
As well, which I really like.
Specificity is good. Intersectionality is good.
Yes. I wish more shows would, like, be unafraid to be specific. I think a lot of shows are really worried about appealing to as many people as possible. San Junipero.
The one episode of Black Mirror with a happy ending. We've already talked about it.
Excellent.
But
we love it. Gugu Mbatha Raw. You've said that it
Gugu Mbatha Raw.
Yeah. It was taken straight out of your brain this episode.
I know.
Yeah.
Like, it's crazy.
Dickinson, I think, I love the way that Sue's bisexuality is, you know, it's there.
Yeah.
And she's in love with, oh my god, she's in love with Emily.
You forgot Evelyn.
I forgot the eponymous character. She's in love with Emily. She's also in love with Emily's brother. It's the bi struggle, I guess. Like, I love it. Also played by Ella Hunt. Ella Hunt does nothing but provide me with, like, Bygones. Appreciate that. What else we got? Sense8.
Sense8 is very fun in that way. It's just very casual, but also still explicit, and it's just great.
It's very specific because it's very weird.
Yes. I love when LGBT filmmakers just make a lot of weird shit. Like Now Apocalypse, for instance.
Yes.
Even like Torchwood, for instance.
But, yes, people who say that Sense8 was like the first show where everyone wasn't straight, like, well, obviously not people who watch Torchwood. Not a single person on Torchwood is straight. Everyone's bi or whatever. Love that for everyone on Torchwood, you know. And I just want to put it on the record here, and I will talk about this in my Doctor Who episode, but Jack Harkness is bi. He's bi. He's not gay, okay? He's not omnisexual. Friggin' kill these bitches. He's bi. What else have we got? You said Now Apocalypse.
Oh, The Gay and Wondrous Life of Caleb Gello.
Caleb Gello!
It's on YouTube. Just watch it,
watch
please.
It.
It's so fun.
I watched it in one afternoon. It takes 2 hours max to watch all of it. It's so much fun. It's very much, it's got like the same chaotic energy. Now Apocalypse. It's just balls to the walls, like young people being specific and strange, and like in the very first episode, like there's a character who rings up Caleb, the main character.
Like, I'm going by.
And he's like,
Lenjamin.
Lenjamin is like, oh my god, Len, you're going by?
Yeah, and then there's The Slope. Yeah, that's the web series by Desiree Akhavan that we mentioned. It's a little bit weird because she made it with her ex, who is also a filmmaker, and they have proceeded to, after splitting up, they have proceeded to make media that is very much about the other person. Yeah. Which is kind of funny.
It's very weird. As I recently watched Ingrid's movie, Women Who Kill, and it's like, I was like, wow, okay.
Which character is supposed to be Desiree?
I reckon it's the girl that she's with in the movie who's bi, and she reckons that character is a murderer. Like, the whole movie, she's like, oh, this woman's a murderer, and she finds out at the end it wasn't her, it was someone she knew, but, like, still for the whole movie, she's, like, paranoid that this bi woman that she's dating is a murderer, and I'm like, could you all just not, like, communicate normally? Like,
I know.
It's like Jay-Z...
Filmmakers who air their...
You know, it's like Jay-Z and Beyonce when they wrote albums about their, like, the fact that they cheated.
It's like when Sophia Coppola made Lost in Translation and then Spike Jonze made Her.
Yeah.
It's a ridiculous...
just like, please, like, be grown-ups. Dirk Gently I want to briefly mention because, well, first of all, I don't think anyone in Dirk Gently is straight. Specifically, I forget her name, which is really bad, but there's a main character in season 2 who's like I think she's
like a park ranger?
Yeah, park ranger, and she's bisexual, and she's very casually talks about it. You see her hook up with guys, you see her hook up with girls. It's very sweet. Love Dirk Gently. I will always miss Dirk Gently. I think it was so nice.
We have Pose. We have Puppy in Pose.
Puppy! The other, like I mentioned before, we were going to talk about another Latino bi character. This is Puppy in Pose. He is Oh, he's so lovely. I just love him. He's so sweet and he loves Angel.
And so pretty.
He's so pretty. Wow.
We've also got Black Sails. I remember I started watching Black Sails because everyone was like, oh my god, this show is actually gay. And I remember kind of like dragging my feet about it because I was like, how long do I have to wait until it gets gay, you know? And episode 1, bitch. Yeah, I'm very glad.
I've tried to watch Black Sails a few times. I just don't think I've been in the right mood when I've sat down to watch it. Like, I can't focus on it. But I do know there are both bi men and bi women in that show, and every time I see gifs of that captain and his boyfriend, I'm like, hey, I'll drink to that, bro. I'm just like, good for them. There's those bi pirates that everyone loves so much.
What We Do in the Shadows.
The TV series. Everybody is bi in the TV series.
It's great.
I love them.
I mean, I would argue the movie is also has a lot of queer-coded content.
But as Maria Filippo says, TV more lends itself to representations of bisexuality than film. But I agree with you. Film is very much like, again, why would you be immortal and be straight?
I love that whole arc with Beanie Feldstein, like lesbian icon Beanie Feldstein.
In the series?
Yes, in the series, and where she turns into a vampire and she's also got like a huge crush on Nadia. Like, it's great.
It's so good.
It's great.
I love how they're all in love with the big ugly vampire. What's his name? The big like evil vampire that comes to stay with them, and they're all in love with him, and they're all like trying to like get on in his good books, and then he's asking them to like take over the world, and they're like, we don't want to do that, we're too lazy. I love them all. Oh, Sanctuary. I feel like this is a show that only me and my father have watched. I've never heard anyone else talk about this show. Sanctuary was a show that aired, I'm pretty sure, in like 2009 or something, and it was set in a world where there were all these magical creatures, and it sort of was a bit like historical fan fiction-y. It was about a woman who was immortal called Dr. Helen Magnus, who ran an institute called the Sanctuary that basically hunted magical creatures. She was in love with Jack the Ripper, who is also immortal, but her other love interest was Nikola Tesla.
Your boy.
My boy, who is a vampire, who is bisexual. And look, I don't remember if it's good or not because I haven't watched Sanctuary since I was bloody 14 years old, but I just remember loving Nikola Tesla because he clearly liked boys and he loved Dr. Magnus, and he's my boy. And then we've got our third Adam.
Our third bisexual
Our
Adam.
third bisexual Adam of the afternoon.
Oh shit, I just realised Neon Genesis Evangelion also has an Adam who is...
Oh my god.
Oh my god.
Okay, so we've got another bisexual...
We've got four bisexual Adams.
Four bisexual Adams, but the one I was mentioning is Adam Parrish in the Raven Boys book series written by Maggie Stiefvater.
I don't know how to say her name.
Anyway,
that's being turned into a TV series, apparently.
Yes, apparently.
And the first episode is directed by Catherine Hardwicke.
Oh my god, that's actually like a perfect choice for this. Yeah. But anyway, Adam, I knew he was bi. Like, the first moment I read this boy, I was like, yep, that's a bi, that is definitely a bi man. And like, my mum and my sisters, because we were all reading it at the same time, my mum and my sister were like, no, why do you have to make everything like gay? And I'm like, I'm not, he is. Like, you'll see. It's the biggest validation of my life when he hooked up with well, in case you want to read it, I won't say. But, like, it is so good. Alright, what else have we got in our great category?
You just wrote Channing Tatum.
Oh, I just wrote Channing Tatum. Channing Tatum, I just love him because he's bi and every character he's ever played is bisexual. That's it. I will not elaborate.
I'm surprised that you haven't mentioned Alia Shawkat.
It's because she hasn't really played, like, as everyone should know about me, I love Alia Shawkat. My icon on Tumblr has either been Desiree or Alia, like my two Middle Eastern bi-cons. Alia is bi. I don't think Alia's ever played a straight character in her life, but I also don't think she's been given the opportunity to play a Woolloowa in her career. I mean, yes, we do have Duck Butter.
Yes.
But most of her projects, apart from that. And also Duck Butter is very, like, it is very explicit. Like, I don't think it's something that everyone would watch.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? But no, Duck Butter Yeah, Alia is... I guess that butter is good by representation. I don't know, like, because neither of them really... Oh, no, she does. She talks about guys that she's hooked up with.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
but
I guess...
also it's like an anti-romance movie.
So I don't know what that word... But, you know, of course, Alia is my favourite
There's
Bicon in the world.
There's nuance to that movie that I really like, and she did write
She did write it.
As well.
Yeah.
So...
Yes, I have just written Channing Tatum, though. Because every character Channing Tatum has ever played is bi, and that's just a fact. I can't. And I've just got here in our Biconic category, I've got Good Manners.
Yeah.
We've talked about this movie a lot on this podcast because we both love it. It is, like, so much fun. Again, it's a horror movie. One of the main characters is bi. Please watch it. It's a good time.
Yes.
But, you know, if you're over 18.
Yes.
Don't watch it if you're under 18. Which brings us to category 6.
Miscellaneous.
These are shows that we really can't put into any particular category.
Maybe some of them sort of fit into some of the ones that we've already mentioned, but also kind of not.
Either that or they belong in all categories, really.
Yeah.
And some of these shows, number one on this list for me is Penny Dreadful. Penny Dreadful's a really interesting show. Nobody in that show is straight except for one guy, the most boring character. But no one in that show is straight, but everyone at the same time is very straight-washed.
Yes.
Like, it's very odd. I don't know what to say beyond that. Dorian Gray is there. He is a bisexual menace, pretty much. Ethan is
a by the way.
Yeah,
in that he hooks up with Dorian and then you never hear anything about.
Yeah, you never.
There's nothing relating to him being attracted to men ever again.
Nope. Not ever. Victor Frankenstein, you know, I'm pretty sure he's actually gay, but, like, I don't know. He's bi because I'm pretty sure he's in love with Dr. Jekyll. Vanessa is pretty much in love with Mina. There's a whole episode that is literally about how much she is in love with Mina.
Yeah. We have talked before about how Vanessa is kind of also supposed to be like Lucy Westenra as well. So it's kind of like that.
Yeah, so it's an extension.
It's an adaptation of that.
Of that kind of relationship. And Vanessa is very clearly like in love with Mina and doesn't really recognize that. And that's why she's so obsessed with finding her. There's also, I wouldn't even put that in by the way, because there's also like a weird flirtation she has with this sword fighting lady in the final season. It's pretty sexy, I'm not gonna lie. But like nothing comes of it really. It's just like really flirty and weird, because Vanessa dies at the end of series 3 and it still kills me. So yeah, Penny Dreadful's very odd. I don't know where to put it. I wouldn't try to put it anywhere.
We have Mr. Robot.
Mr. Robot.
So, Mr. Robot has quite a few LGBT characters. The first bisexual that we're presented with is Tyrell Wellick, which is kind of like, what if the homoerotic subtext in American Psycho wasn't subtext? And that's where you get Tyrell Wellick, the psycho gay trope. I don't know. I don't really know where to put it in terms of, because I haven't rewatched. Because, you know, he's kind of been, like, so insignificant to the recent storyline that,
they killed him off.
Yeah.
They didn't even care.
They did kill him off. I kind of hated him anyway. I was waiting for him to just die.
I've hated him from day one, so, like, I really was, like... Yeah. I was not even ecstatic. I was like, finally.
I hated Tyrell Elliott shippers.
Tyrell Elliott shippers can shut up forever.
Like, you have no rights. Also, like, Elliot and Leon was, like, right there.
Yes.
Like, please...
I'm pretty sure Elliot is bi. I don't think he's straight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, there's just many aspects about Elliot that are quite queer-coded, probably. But, but there's also Darlene.
The women!
Yes, the women. Shayla's bi. Angela's bi. Darlene is bi. I really loved Angela and Darlene.
I know you did.
I never got anything from that.
Rest in
I
peace.
really hated how this last final season, spoilers for the last season of Mr. Robot if you haven't caught up, Darlene and Dom, who, you know, like, Darlene hooks up with Dom in season 3 just so that she can get like
her FBI pass.
FBI pass. Like it's treated in a very transactional way. I don't like how season 4 seemed to kind of blow it up to be more than that, which I didn't see, you know, at the time that season 3 was airing, so it kind of like as if it was more meaningful. Yeah, I kind of
But also it actually doesn't treat it as meaningful as you think it's going to.
Exactly. It kind of baits you into thinking that it's going to be more meaningful, but it doesn't. Yeah, also, I don't know, because it's so sad how, like, season 4 kind of, like, it kind of pushes them together and it pushes you to believe, oh, yeah, this is going to be it. But also kind of, like, it shows you just how wrong they are for each other because Dom is such a narc.
But they also realize that.
Yeah, they also realized that. But it was quite sad in that moment where Darlene pulls off, the greatest redistribution of wealth in human history.
Woo!
And then she has just this cop telling her, "What? But that's not justice.
That's not legal, Darlene."
Yeah.
Shut up, Dom.
Like, as if they would be. And then, because Sam Esmail hates me.
Yeah, he does. He told me.
Because Sam Esmail hates me, he decides to give us, like, a lesbian running through the airport
Run away with
scene
me.
with Run Away With Me by Carly Rae Jepsen playing in the background, which doesn't end up
terrorism.
the emotional terrorism of that, very much so. Yeah, I don't know. I think Mr. Robot, I just liked that it was everywhere and it was kind of normal,
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, I did like that about it, but also, like,
But obviously, the way that some of it's treated is, like, I don't like the way that Tyrell's dalliances with men is handled, and which is why it's in this category, because even though it is, like, kind of cool of them to be so casual about it, there are some issues with, like, maybe they're a bit too casual in some places. So, here you go. Oh. It's your time to shine.
Also, on this list I also have Dance Academy, which I know in the scope of LGBT television and cinema content is a very insignificant little ABC kids show that aired in the late noughties in Australia. Apparently it's popular. It gets shown in England and is popular in, like, Korea and stuff. I don't know. There is a character named Sammy. He's Jewish. He's bisexual. And on this kids show, he dies. And it's really sad.
Oh, God.
And just also, I should note on this show as well, Dance Academy, Sammy's boyfriend is played by Keenan Lonsdale.
Woo!
Icon.
Of Love Simon fame.
Of Love Simon, The Flash fame. And also Jordan Rodriguez is there. He's in The Fosters, and also, unfortunately, he's in Lady Bird as well.
Who Saoirse Ronan is racist to in Lady Bird.
Yeah, her brother. Sammy gets, like, a really nice arc. I think what's interesting, like, looking back at it, because obviously I was a kid when I watched this, and I was kind of scarred just the way that they killed Sammy like that, because obviously, like, this is I'm a kid, I'm watching a kid's show, I'm not used to death as a concept.
No.
Very tragically gets hit by a car and dies.
That's very sad.
But yeah, the way that his bisexuality is handled, like, obviously they never say the word bisexual. I think obviously it kind of reflects just how young these characters are, because there is no community, so, like, they have no community to really access the kind
and
of,
they probably don't have the vocab
either. Because they don't have the community, they don't have the vocab, so it's treated in a very strange kind of way. That was a show that was made that has that has had a severe impact on me.
There you go. We've already mentioned Crashing in relation to Fleabag and Phoebe Waller-Bridge, but there's also a bisexual plotline in Crashing that doesn't involve Phoebe at all. Deeply
problematic.
So it's between two men, and it's
Fred and some white boy.
It kind of reminds me, in, like, a less violent way, sex education of Eric and Adam. So basically there's this character who latches on, this white guy, he latches on to this South Asian guy who meets at a party.
Named Fred, who they live in the same hospital building.
Same building.
Fred is very openly gay.
The white guy clearly, like, you can tell, like, from the very, like, start, like, he really likes Fred, like, as more than just a friend, but he obviously hasn't considered that he's attracted to men, like, before this, and it's an interesting character because, like, you can see that struggle that he doesn't want to admit it, like, he's very scared to admit it, which I think that is actually represented quite well, but like, the way they go about how he treats Fred is really, like, he sort of lashes out at him, like, he, like, gets angry, like, for making him even question this about himself. Yeah, like, which is just a bit sad. It's a bit sad. I mean, it is quite cute by the end of this season, but it's not like we're getting any more of the show. So, yeah. But yeah, I think the reason it's in the miscellaneous for me is because it really does do that internalized biphobia thing quite well. That one element where he's often lashing out at Fred, which is like, but no, crashing is interesting, and obviously we've already mentioned the Phoebe aspect of that as well. It's like, God. Why women kill?
let's move on from that. I love Some Girls.
We love Some Girls. We've talked about Some Girls before on this podcast.
We talked about how Saz and Viva were gay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But in Some Girls, there is a plot line where Saz reckons she's into women.
Yeah, reckons that she may be into women because she receives an anonymous love letter from a girl, and she tries to. I guess the episode is her exploring that about herself.
Yeah,
which is quite sweet.
And I actually like that. That's something you see in a kids, well, not a kids show, but a show aimed at teens.
Yeah,
I think it's handled quite well. Mm-hmm. But it is a bit by the way in the sense that it happens in that one episode, and then we don't really. Yeah. Know what happened afterwards.
Yeah, other than all the subtext with her and Viva.
Yeah, so maybe that's the point. Maybe it's that it's not conclusive and that it'll come up later.
Yeah, it's totally okay to not have this shit figured out in your teens.
Yeah, and I think maybe that's the point of that episode. But I think it's really nice because she pops up in Doctor Who as like Bill's best friend, and I was like, oh, it's Saz. Like in my head, I was like, that can be Saz.
It's still Saz.
Yes. What else have we got? Oh, I want to briefly talk about Euphoria. Euphoria is a strangely violent, I don't know how to even describe it, show. It's got Zendaya and Hunter Schafer as the two main characters. They are two women in love. Zendaya plays a character who has mentioned she's been in relationships with boys, but she's also in love with Hunter Schafer, who is a girl. Hunter Schafer's character is also into boys as well as girls. Like, everyone is sort of, like, into boys and girls on this show. Mm-hmm. They're all teens. But Euphoria has similar issues.
It's weird in that it's very much a show for adults, and it's produced by Drake of all people.
And it's about teens.
Yes.
And I have a real issue with the way that they are so hypersexualized in these movies. Mm-hmm. Like, I really wasn't expecting, when I saw the ads for this show, I wasn't expecting it to be so
graphic.
Like, I really, like, in the opening monologue, you see, like, a girl who is meant to be 16 having sex with this 40-something-year-old man, and it's, like, really jarring. Like, I was really, there are scenes that I would legitimately fast forward through because I just couldn't sit and watch them. But I do think it's actually quite interesting. You do have characters sitting down and actually talking about this and talking how, like, you know, they are attracted to women and men and they don't care. And I do think that's I sent you a clip of Hunter Schafer's character Jules talking about how her gender
and how she wants to kill her gender.
Yeah, and kill her gender. So there are elements like that of the show that are really, like, thoughtful, like, and very specific in the way that they're written, but I also just have issues with the way it portrays teens in general. I think maybe that's partially because I lived a very sheltered teenhood, and maybe seeing this is very, like, like, shocking for me because I never had any of that experience. But yeah, it's an interesting one. I don't know whether it's good or bad. It's just
Speaking of Euphoria, we have the next one on the list is, I feel, the equivalent of Euphoria from when we were teens, which is Skins.
For the naughties.
Yeah. I only really watched the first generation. You do have Nicholas Holt's character, Tony, who is quite possibly bi. I don't know.
I've only watched the first 2 episodes.
It was just a very traumatizing time.
Okay.
I kind of look back at it, I'm like, this was very traumatizing, like, to watch this show as a whole. Not just Tony's storyline, but just everything about it.
You have just put here Oberyn Martell.
And I've said the show was respectful to the character's sexuality, but not much else.
Pretty much. I've often said randomly to people that I will tell my grandchildren of Oberyn Martell. He is such an icon.
Pedro is beautiful.
Yep. I cry every time I rewatch the episode where he dies. It's horrible.
Why would you rewatch it?
I actually love season 4 of Game of Thrones. It's, like, very cathartic to watch. I think it's
What an interesting way of saying that you have no rights.
I know. I've told you I suck. What do you want? And I'm a dumbass. This is my mantra on this show. Like, I just like season 4. I love the Dinkles, alright? You know I love the Dinkles. Like, he's my fave. But Oberyn Martell, Bycon, love him. But in Game of Thrones, everything is ignored.
Has a lot of, Game
of Thrones has a lot of subtext that is deeply ignored.
Or deeply homophobic, or biphobic, or transphobic.
Yep. Shadowhunters.
Or just the Mortal Instruments series
The
in
Mortal
general.
Instruments series in general.
We have Magnus Bane.
We love Magnus Bane. Where Magnus Bane stands.
As I've mentioned before, like Magnus Bane was like the first Indonesian queer character that I ever came across in any media ever, and I like latched onto him.
And for me, Magnus was the first character I ever like read in a book that used the word bisexual to describe himself. And the book also actually does cover like him actually dealing with a lot of biphobia, but also like I just love
biphobia and homophobia.
And homophobia. I just love Magnus. He is a bit problematic in the sense that he's a 1,000-plus-year-old man who is in love with a teenager, which is a dynamic I'm not a big fan of, as you know.
Yeah, preferable how the adaptations age the characters up.
Yes, all adaptations, whether you're talking about the Mortal Instruments film, masterpiece, or that show, have aged them up so that it's not as
jarring.
There is Camille, the vampire lady who's the head of the vampires of New York. I love her, and I actually ship her and Magnus a lot in the books. But anyway, it's funny because we actually missed this scene when we saw The Lobster.
Yeah. When we first went to go see The Lobster, we were running late because I accidentally took us in the wrong direction to find the cinema. So we missed this beginning scene, and throughout watching The Lobster, we were like, what if you're bisexual, though?
Yeah, what do you do?
What do you do if you're bisexual?
Like, the bi in the audience, were like, what do I do in this universe? Like, is there a camp I go to where I can pick from an array of people? But no, later on...
Yeah, then later on, when we saw it again, I realized in the very first scene...
Yeah, in the very first scene, maybe this is a commentary, we don't know. In the very first scene when, if you don't know what The Lobster is about, go look it up.
It's too much to explain.
Very first scene, he gets asked, Colin Farrell's character gets asked, is his attraction to women or men? And he asks straight out, he's like, is there a bisexual option? The guy goes, no. Colin Farrell looks deeply exasperated and disappointed and just
decides to be straight.
Decides to be straight. I've often wondered if maybe that scene was a commentary on how... But maybe it was, maybe it's not. Maybe Colin Farrell's just a coward. I don't know. But yeah, The Lobster's an interesting one, because I can't tell whether it's deliberately being like deep and commenting on something, or whether they just were like...
I think The Lobster is a deeply pretentious movie, though.
Yeah, so I think maybe it was. What have we got? Oh, you want to talk about Your Name.
Oh, okay, I will just say this. Actually, I don't know if Your Name is...
Also, she's talking about a movie called Your Name. She's not just talking about my name, or I'm not talking about her name.
Yeah. So Your Name is a 2016 animated film from Japan. I think the main character, like Mitsuha, she was gay, because like there's that whole plot line of her, like when she's in the body of Taki, like she and that other woman have that flirtation, like she's really into, and like she only when she is in Taki's body, like do they vibe, and when they don't, and when Taki is just himself, like the woman, like she doesn't like get anything from it. So yeah, but also I think Taki might be bi as well, just because the way he and one of his friends interact is really sweet, and also he does love Mitsuha.
Why have you put it in the miscellaneous category though?
Because I don't really know. Because honestly, it's more subtextual, I guess. Because it's not that kind of movie. Because, it's not even... I wouldn't even say it's quite romantic anyway.
No, it's a deeply tragic film that brought up my Dr. River trauma, and I really didn't appreciate it.
I love that movie, though. Please watch it.
Please watch Your Name. It's a very sweet movie. Next up, we have Atomic Blonde, which I'm very confused about this movie, because in the trailer... they make it quite clear that Charlize Theron's character has a husband who she...
Not a husband, but just, like, a man
she loved and is sort of, like...
Who dies at the beginning of the movie.
Yeah, who she's sort of, not revenging, but, like, picking up the pieces from. And that was made clear in the trailer, but in the movie itself...
In the final cut of the movie, there's nothing really about that previous relationship, though. So it's very confusing as to whether we're supposed to see her as bi or lesbian. I know a lot of people just kind of just say she's bi because what everyone went with, like, from the trailer itself.
Yeah. And the way the film was marketed, even in, like, TV ads and stuff.
Yeah.
Like
the entire lesbian sex scene is in the trailer.
Yeah, pretty much. But
I don't like Atomic Blonde.
Her relationship primarily in the film is with Sofia Boutella, and it's a horrible movie because they kill Sofia Boutella.
It's very much just if you made James Bond a woman and just made that character, like, still cruel to women in the same way that James Bond is, you know?
Yeah.
It feels that way.
It's in the miscellaneous category, though, because we don't actually know what the intention was, if she was meant to be bi.
Apparently they're making a sequel because Hollywood is the worst. So I don't know, maybe these questions will be answered.
Who knows? Maybe the second one might be better, you never know.
Oh, The History Boys. The History Boys is a play which was also made into a 2006 movie by Alan Bennett, who is gay. I don't know, it's a deeply messed up story, but one thing that I do like about it is that one of the main characters, Dakin, played by Dominic Cooper, is bisexual, and he very much kind of just, even though there are other gay characters around him going through, you know, that whole, like, oh, am I gay? Kind of, like, conflict in his mind, like, he very much just settles on it quite confidently. And I like that about it. It doesn't really go anywhere. I do think, like, he and his best friend Scripps should have been in love, but the story doesn't actually explore that. But I really liked seeing just that confidence from Dakin, which is nice.
I've still got to watch The History Boys.
Yeah, you should. Moonlight and Pain and Glory, I want to talk kind of, like, together, because these films, they are primarily gay films, because their protagonists are gay, but there is, like, it's got, like, the most tender and beautiful representations of bi men in a relationship with gay men where they're the exception to each other. It's really just lovely and, like, just the sweetest thing. And
go read the Moonlight script. Go read the Moonlight
and go watch
script.
Pain and Glory. Like, it's so, they both do it, like, in a similar way, and I love it. Like, it's so tender and just so. There's also The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, which actually I looked it up. It is being made into a series.
It's a book at the moment.
It's a book right now. It's a book right now about basically an old Hollywood film star named Evelyn Hugo who had 7 husbands, and she's kind of doing this tell-all at the end of her life about, like, all her marriages, and, you know, and she reveals that she was bisexual and in a relationship with a woman. And it actually is being made into a series. I don't know when it's coming out, but it's being executive produced by some of the people that worked on The L Word as well.
Oh.
So, yeah, stay tuned.
Stay tuned. Watch this space. Lastly, I want to mention the most problematic bicon of all time, which is Aaron Williams, who is in 7 Days in Hell. I've mentioned 7 Days in Hell at least twice on this podcast because it is the greatest mockumentary of all time. Andy Samberg plays Aaron Williams, the adopted brother of Serena and Venus Williams, and he is bisexual from start to finish. I'm pretty sure he's in love with Kit Harington's character.
Like, it's very much played for laughs, but also, like, I think his straight relationships are played for, like, his relationships with women are played for laughs as well.
His whole persona
like,
is
just
played
everything
for laughs.
is played for laughs.
So it's kind of like, is it biphobic or is it just like they hate tennis?
Is it
It's like homophobia, but they've gone to such efforts to actually, you know how you hear people go like, oh, I'm not homophobic, I hate everybody. This is the only thing that legitimately does that. Like, it goes like, oh, we're not like biphobic, we genuinely don't care about anybody, which it doesn't. But also, as a result,
it's so funny.
They make something that is the funniest thing that's ever been made.
Like, it's terrible to say, but sometimes homophobia is really funny.
Occasionally, gays can have homophobia.
Gays can have a little homophobia as a treat.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that's really 7 Days in Hell.
But it's like in very specific circumstances. Like, don't go excusing other random shit. But
it's just
7 Days in Hell is probably, like, the only thing I would defend, you know?
Actually, and as I've actually watched a lot of his other, like, mockumentaries that he's made, and I think 7 Days in Hell is the only one that gets away with it. All the others are, like, really properly, except for maybe Tour de Pharmacy, which is just, like, really funny because cycling is also stupid. But anyway, so that's our categories. We have one last category.
Oh, you thought we were done?
You thought we were done? No, the final category is category 7, ladies and gentlemen. Let bygones be bygones. And this category is pretty much for the characters whose bisexuality is completely ignored. It's not even subtext, it's just not there.
Often it will be like in a book, these characters are bisexual or subtextually bisexual. Or in a comic. Or just in the original source material they'll be bisexual, but when made into a movie or show it's completely ignored. The cases that we have are Valkyrie in Thor Ragnarok.
Which that's very publicly, like, been everywhere, that Tessa Thompson, who is by herself, very much tried to get Valkyrie's bisexuality represented in that film, and it did not happen. Apparently that's going to change in Thor 4, but we
have no idea. And also, I think if you're looking for representation, you shouldn't be looking towards Marvel.
Look towards Marvel. I have a whole essay I wrote on homophobia and Marvel, and I highly doubt they're ever going to change their ways.
Never Let Me Go, we've already mentioned in a previous episode.
Next up is my girl, Harley Quinn. Pretty much consistently, whenever there's been an animation of her or in a video game, most things ignore that Poison Ivy is her girlfriend.
Which is sad.
Which is sad. I'm hoping Birds of Prey will change that.
Yes.
I don't know if it will. I honestly don't want to speculate because I don't want to get disappointed. Yep, even in Suicide Squad, Harley's bisexuality is ignored. I know Margot is a huge fan of the character though, so I'm hoping. I am actually hoping. We've got Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man. Andrew Garfield, he ran so Tom Holland could walk. He wanted to make Spider-Man bisexual. He and Mark Webb in the Amazing Spider-Man trilogy wanted to make Spider-Man bisexual and actually had cast. They actually were casting a guy to play MJ.
They actually were?
They actually were.
Like they were on their way to actually do it?
Yeah, they were.
I thought...
No, because they originally hired
Shailene Woodley.
Shailene Woodley. They originally hired her to play MJ, and then she said that they were going in a completely different direction and she couldn't play MJ. And then Andrew Garfield kept saying that he wanted Michael B. Jordan to play MJ, because MJ is just MJ. MJ doesn't have to be a girl. He's right. He said it, and they killed him for it.
Not literally, but they did basically snipe him.
They sniped out his Spider-Man trilogy, and then they resold it to Sony. Oh no, not
Sony.
Sony resold it to Marvel,
Disney Marvel,
and
with the stipulation
that Spider-Man couldn't only be straight.
Had to be straight.
Yeah. He and Deadpool are boyfriends. Go look it up. Also, Wolverine's another case of, you really think he's lived for 500 years and never once, dated or kissed a man. You really want to go there with me? Okay.
Yeah, also, we've got Utopia up next. This is a bit of a weird one. The 2013 series created by Dennis Kelly. In the second season, the character Milner, she is living with a woman. I don't know. It's not talked about.
It's not talked about. It's just there, and
I just think it's very interesting.
Yeah, maybe it would have been explored later. Who knows?
We will never know.
And then we've got Mystique, part of the X-Men. She's meant to be bi. Not portrayed as bi in any of the a zillion X-Men movies that we have.
Yeah, we've got Interview with a Vampire, the books and the movie, Brad Pitt and Tom Cruise. We all know that Anne Rice is like that. So, moving on.
And Annihilation.
Which is... I don't even think that there's anything to say, really, about Annihilation.
I tell you what we do have stuff to say about, though. Can you briefly talk about Love, Simon?
Oh, yeah! So, Love, Simon is based on a book called Simon versus the Homo sapien Agenda. And the movie Love, Simon has this weird, non-existent love triangle with Leia, Catherine Langford's character, Simon and Nick. It's really weird that they make Leia be in love with Simon in the movie.
Yeah.
It's really dumb and oversimplified, I think. But in the book, actually, Simon spends the whole book thinking that Leia is in love with their other friend Nick. But actually, in the sequel to Love, Simon, Leia and the Offbeat, which is about her, it's revealed that Leia is bisexual and she was actually into Abby the whole time. So when you thought that she was being jealous of Nick and Abby, it wasn't because she was into Nick, it was actually into Abby. Apparently, the author told Alexandra Shipp and Catherine Langford this while they were working on the Love, Simon movie.
Yeah.
But
the only scene you can kind of see
I
it.
don't see it at all.
I don't know. I kind of could see it, like, but not really because there's nothing about it. But like, there's a scene where Leah sees. Oh my god, I've forgotten the other girl's name.
Sees Abby
in a Wonder Woman costume. And is like, she has like a bi-panic kind of moment. But it's really a blink and you miss it kind of thing. It's not really something.
I did miss it. Like, I didn't.
You blinked.
Yeah, I blinked.
Yep, you blinked and it went.
I think.
That is categorized. Oh my god, we did it.
We did it.
My concluding thought is that the big problem with bi-rep, like the main problem I'd say, is that 90% of it is not done out of a desire to like genuinely and respectfully represent the bi experience, but rather to just use bisexuality as a juvenile way to appease both like LGBT and non-LGBT audiences because of the fluidity of bisexuality. Makes it easy to moralize and also makes it
throwing you a bone and calling it a feast, as you said.
As I've said. Like, and it's often, I hate the way bisexuality is also used to, like, have identity crisis. I rarely see bisexuality represented as something, like, whole and nuanced and something that brings someone fulfillment, you know, except maybe with Oberyn Martell, but they kill him for it.
Well, not for that, but for other things.
You know,
bisexuality.
Yeah, and that's like what bitextuality is. It's really just this idea that bisexuality is a textual device for exploring other like, discourse, like race and all this other stuff.
Class and it just mentality.
And I think we're only ever going to get that if more bi creators like Alia, like Desiree, are allowed to make weirdly specific
nuanced representations.
And nuanced representations. I actually don't think that you will ever be able to make like a bi character, like write a bi character that is like liked by everybody because bisexuality is such a thing that everyone experiences differently. It's like anything.
Yeah.
I just wish that people could get on board with that a bit more and just be like, you know, get specific with things. Not worry so much about appealing to everybody, but that won't happen because we live in a hellscape of capitalist society and everything has to appeal to everybody in order to maximize profit. But that's what I wish for it. I do like that we've got more visibility. I just wish that visibility was more thoughtful because I think the lack of specificity with the visibility that we've got has like unearthed this very strange discourse where we're now
this very strange culture of just people that aren't informed correctly.
Yeah.
Again, just about LGBT culture and about LGBT history.
Yes. And I really dislike the idea, like, I've heard people say so many times, like, oh, at least make this character bi. It just encourages all these little biphobic, like, not microaggressions, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Like, these small things that become big things. And I would just love to see more bi people of colour in general.
Yeah.
That's my wish. Like, bisexuality is a sexuality. It's like, it's not a gender. Like, it would be great to see more, like, non-binary, like, bisexual people.
Yes.
And trans bisexual people. Because, you know, they exist. They out here. Love you guys. Thanks for your service. I don't know. I want more, but I don't want it to be... I wish we could get away from that clinicalness and get away from this trying to make non-LGBT audiences feel cathartic and feel like, yes, queen.
I just think that negative representation isn't representation.
No. And stop aiming for neutral representation. You know, there's
neutrality is
there's no such
not
thing.
going to help anyone.
No,
really.
It doesn't help anyone. It just makes you feel like you're a weird spectacle. You know, I think that's what bothers me about those clinical is that it really is treating it like a spectacle and being like, oh, look at the bi person. Let's ask them about their existence.
Hey, you see this bisexual in their natural habitat.
Yes, here they are, sitting eating in the restaurant. Are they scoping out their next victim? Who knows? I do have, like, characters that I wish were bi, but at the same time I don't want them to be, for instance, in Stranger Things. I would love it if Steve came out as bi, but I don't want him to.
The thing about Stranger Things is that even though I do have some queer interpretations of some of the characters, like, there aren't enough other characters around them to really, like, to really ship them with anyone in terms of, like, with Steve being bi. It's like, yeah, but what other boys are there?
Oh my God.
Like there's just Jonathan and Billy who are the worst.
When I had this thought, I was like, okay, like who would I like Steve to have as a boyfriend? And literally I was like, no one, he die alone. That's the best you can hope for in Hawkins. Oh no. Poor Will. My little baby gay boy. But yes, I want more bi characters who use the word bisexual and don't use it in a weird clinical way and are just like happy, but also, face difficulties. I basically want, I know this is crazy, but hear me out. I want authentic bisexual representation that is written like with bisexual people. Do you smell that? An Emmy. Yes. Do you have any concluding thoughts, Durr-e, Adan?
Like, I've identified as a lesbian since I was 20, but, I think, like, when I was first kind of just realizing that I wasn't straight, like, bisexual was the first word that I latched onto. So this kind of stuff, like, it is important to me. Because I spent so long, kind of worrying about these things that we have been talking about. Solidarity from within the community is important, I think. Yeah, just also kindness and empathy.
Yeah, kind of what?
Like those things are good, I think.
They are good.
Not
I like
to be controversial.
Yeah, I think they're 10 out of 10. I personally would recommend kindness and empathy. Also, PSA, lesbians and bi women, like, we're friends. We're not enemies.
Yeah.
We're not like
we have more in common with each other than with like us and like any other
So stop
group of people.
Yeah, stop pitting us against each other. You're scaring the hoes.
I know.
Yeah.
It's so weird. Like, it's so weird, like, that so much, like, time is spent, like, arguing about, like, privileges, like, who is more privileged than the other, and I think it's stupid.
Yeah.
And,
it doesn't matter if a bi woman and a lesbian are in a relationship, it doesn't matter the privilege, quote unquote, that the bi woman may have in a certain circumstance. That won't matter. Literally 2 women were murdered on a, like, bus not too long ago.
Murdered?
They were murdered they were bashed, sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry, yeah. They were hate crimed. 2 women were hate crimed on a bus. One of them was bi. That didn't matter. That didn't help in that situation. The whole discourse that's around who has the most privilege in any given... It's like, useless.
It's just stupid. Like, shut up and
it's stupid.
Please.
Go make friends.
Please go make friends and protect your friends.
Mm-hmm. If you do feel like, that you don't like identifying as bisexual, maybe interrogate why that is. And do a little soul searching, do a little research, do a little education.
And it's not because the word bisexual is, like, the wrong term.
No.
Like, language-wise.
It's internalized biphobia, baby.
Yeah. So just, again, like, it's your culture, so learn the history.
Learn your history. All right, I think we're done.
Yeah, so thank you for listening to GayV Club. Like, subscribe, rate, leave a nice review on wherever you listen to podcasts.
You can find us on the socials.
At GayV_club.
Yes.
On Twitter and Instagram. The DMs are open on that if you have any questions or requests. We also have a YouTube for people that need closed captions.
We sure do. Go watch something nice. I'm very excited. We're going to be seeing Birds of Prey soon, so I'm very excited. And go be kind. Go be empathetic to each other and have an excellent fortnight.
Yes. See you.
Bye. Bye.